My name is Sara DeWitt, and I am the Vice President of PBS Kids Digital. So I manage digital production and partnership with the producers of PBS Kids shows to develop their games and streaming video and websites. So, really, all digital production of pbskids.org, the PBS Kids video app, the PBS Kids games app, and PBS Kids for Parents are all things that fall within my group.
Can you tell me a little how you try to make these accessible for children with disabilities?
We are very committed at PBS to being representative of as broad an audience as possible, and also then accessible to as wide an audience as possible. So for us, that definitely includes children with disabilities. It also is thinking about kids across all socioeconomic status, trying to think about how we can be accessible to as many of America's children as possible. And so we take that very seriously and feel very strongly about it. We want kids to feel like they can see themselves in our shows and in our content, and that they can play unfettered with our digital content in a way that allows them to learn and grow.
Can you give me maybe a few examples of shows or games that are accessible and like the way they are accessible to different kids with disabilities?
Sure. So things like just our shows that you might just see on television, like The Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that, and Peg Plus Cat, Splash and Bubbles. Those are shows that have closed captioning, both on air and on our digital platforms, but also descriptive audio and Spanish secondary audio on air. Our new show that's launching next week, Hero Elementary, will also have all of those things when it launches. So for viewing on shows. And so anything also then that's streaming video, the PBS Kids video app and the Apple TV version of that, as well as the mobile versions, will also, everything has closed captioning. And then in the game area, a few examples where we've gone deeper and tried to do more extensive work in accessibility. I think the best example is a game developed by our member station in New York, 13 WNET. They did a game for Cyberchase called Railway Hero, where they really were very intentional in every piece of that game to thinking about how it could be accessible to as wide a population as possible. They worked with Bridge Multimedia and built in all kinds of additional features like text resizing, different things for color contrast, ways to turn music off and on, anything that might cause any kind of sensory overload. Just lots of features for children with both physical and cognitive impairments. And through that process, we learned so much that we were then able to take to other games and other opportunities. So those are some quick examples.
How do you make sure that all these features work? Do you have a test group of kids you work with?
So we test all of our games. We have what we call a playtesting program, and we partner with many schools to go in and test with kids. Now that so many schools are closed, we are doing virtual testing. So recruiting families and doing testing over video chat or by sending parents surveys. But everything we do, even when it's just at the paper concept level and when it's an alpha and beta, goes in front of kids to get a sense. And so we've been really actively working on partnerships where we then can be testing with kids with differing abilities. So one of the biggest ones is with Johns Hopkins Ideals. And so we've been working with them quite a bit to then test with kids who are in that program and talk to parents about the needs that they might have for content, so that we can learn from all of this and see if there are ways we can improve all of our games.
So we've talked about captions and descriptive audio, but I've also seen that you have some content for kids with autism, kids with learning disabilities and things like that. Can you talk a little more about these kind of accessibility features you offer?
So I think for kids with autism, we've been thinking a lot about sensory kind of things. So that thing about turning music on or being able to lower volume, that's something that we've been working on very specifically. And then certainly in games that focus on feelings and emotions and social emotional content, um, we, you know, the games are produced for a wide audience. And what we then are trying to do is think about what scaffolds can we build in that can be helpful specifically to children on the autism spectrum. And so in some of those places, it's not only offering the name of an emotion and a picture of the character with an emotion, but like we have a Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood app, where we then allow the child to take a photo of themselves trying to show that emotion, so that you have different representations of that emotion for the child to see in the game. We have heard from a few producers that the kind of like the eye shape and the ability of the character to express emotion has been resonating with children on the autism spectrum. And so we'd love to do more research about that and what that is, but we regularly receive letters from parents who talk about shows like Dinosaur Train and how their children are responding to elements of that show in ways that they had not responded to others. Yeah.
And if we talk about diversity overall, especially like representation of people or children with disabilities, can you talk a little bit about like how you represent this in your shows?
So this is a really critical thing for us, and something that we feel very strongly about is making sure that, as I said, kids can see representations of themselves that are positive representations, not being presented as a stereotype. So so there are several shows that feature characters. The new show that launches next week, Hero Elementary, one of the principal characters, AJ Gadgets, he's one of the four kids who are the principals in the show, is on the autism spectrum and always has headphones around his neck so that he can kind of tune things out when he needs to. We also, on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Prince Wednesday's cousin Chrissy walks with braces, and there are several episodes where she and Daniel talk about the fact that she wears braces on her legs and what are the things about the two of them that are the same and what are the things about the two of them that are different. You know, she doesn't have a tail and he has a tail. She has braces and he doesn't have braces. You know, so really trying to like model for kids the knowledge we have that kids are going to notice that something's different, and to model good ways to have those conversations about like what you probably still really like a lot of the same things, even though you may look different or you may walk differently. Arthur is a show that has done a wonderful job of representing lots of different kids. Like Buster has asthma. One of the main characters in one episode has there's a traumatic event in the neighborhood, and he suffers with anxiety, and so the episode follows him through meeting with counselors and therapists and working on ways to calm himself down when he's feeling overwhelmed and panicked. And they also have Carl, who is on the autism spectrum, and he's in like 9 episodes. He's a recurring character. So there's just lots of ways that we are incorporating characters. And I should say that these aren't just being developed in a vacuum. It's not just a writer sitting in a room writing it. We have all kinds of the producers themselves who create the content are often working with outside advisors and with communities to make sure that they're representing things accurately. But then also through this partnership with the U.S. Department of Education, we've been able to then provide additional advisors for our producers to contact and talk with when they're thinking about representing children with differing abilities.